All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Joaquin Escobar. Today is Wednesday, October 18th. It is 9:32 a.m., and I'd like to call this meeting to order. I'd like to begin by introducing my fellow board colleagues. With me here today is Vice Chair Doreen Diadamo and Board Member Nicole Morgan, and virtually joining us is Board Member Sean McGuire. Here with us today as well is Eileen Sobek, our Executive Director, our Chief Deputy, Eric Oppenheimer, will be joining us, and Michael Loffer, our Chief Counsel, is here with us. Additionally, we have our Clerk of the Board, Courtney Tyler, and assisting her today is Emily McShane and Michael Reed. As you can see, this is a hybrid meeting, so we have both in-person and virtual components. If you're joining us virtually, you're either viewing us through our customary webcast at the Cal EPA website or YouTube Live. But if you intend on commenting on today's workshop, you need to be on the Zoom platform. There are instructions on how to do so and a link at the top of our agenda. But if you're having any challenges getting onto the Zoom platform today, you can directly email the clerk of the board at board.clerk@waterboards.ca.gov, and she can help you get onto the platform. Once you are, your camera will be off, you'll be on mute until it's your turn to speak on today's workshop. For all of you here in the room, good morning. We're here in Sacramento in the Cal EPA building, and a few announcements for us as well. If there happens to be an emergency, which I think want to acknowledge, we did just receive a notification of an earthquake in Isleton, 4.6 from USGS. But if we happen to have any further emergency, we will calmly file out through the exit doors to Cesar Chavez Plaza and await any further instruction. If you intend on commenting on today's workshop, there is a QR code in the back or a tablet here at the side to be able to sign up. And please do just introduce yourself and any organization you're part of when you come up to the mic. And secondly, please do mute your phones, but if there is an emergency, it'll go past that muting, so no concern there. Lastly, I think we don't have public forum this morning, so we can get straight into our workshop. So thank you everyone for joining us this morning, and I'll kick it over to our folks here.
All right, thank you. Good morning. My name is Zach Rounds. I'm with the Division of Drinking Water and the Cross Connection Control Work Group. With me today are Nick McGann and Andreas Aguirre, and they'll be giving a brief presentation on the Cross Connection Control Policy Handbook before we move on to comments.
Thank you, Zach. Good morning, everybody. Next slide, please. So I will quickly go over summarizing why we're here today. The current cross-connection control regulations in Title 17 were adopted over 35 years ago, and there have been no major updates or changes to those regulations since then. There have been multiple attempts to update the regulations pertaining to cross-connection, but none have been completed. In 2017, Assembly Bill 1671 was passed, which required the division to adopt new standards for cross-connection control. AB 1671 allowed the use of a policy handbook instead of the traditional regulatory APA process. And in 2019, Assembly Bill 1180 was passed, which required the handbook to also include provisions for swivel Ls at locations plumbed with both potable and recycled water. The development of a handbook was selected as a means to provide clearer guidance and details on how public water systems can implement cross-connection control programs to better protect public health. While the division was not required to follow the APA process, AB 1671 did stipulate specific steps the division was required to complete before adopting the handbook. A summary of those steps is shown on the slide. While the division has met nearly all of these requirements, being 2023, we obviously did not meet the requirement to have the handbook adopted by January 1st, 2020. This deadline was missed largely due to the vast public interest in the handbook and the numerous comments received during each of the 2 public comment periods. This required a lot of staff time as each comment received was reviewed and addressed. Next slide, please. This slide covers the public involvement steps as required by AB 1671, along with their corresponding summaries and dates of completion. Following each round of public comments, which resulted in a total of more than 1,700 comments, division staff reviewed each comment received and provided a reply or made changes to the handbook where appropriate. Division staff consulted with an external work group to test proposed language edits for potential issues with implementation or for the feasibility of such proposal in an attempt to minimize any unintended consequences. The external work group consisted of various subject matter experts in cross-connection control and/or backflow prevention industries, representatives of public water systems, and other related drinking water industry representatives. For areas in the handbook where there is an overlap between drinking water and recycled water, we consulted with the recycled water unit to better ensure consistent terminology and standards are used and to attempt to minimize duplicative or overlapping regulations. With the final draft of the handbook now released, the remaining steps are the workshop today and the adoption of the policy handbook by the State Water Board, which is anticipated to occur later this year. Within 90 days of the date the handbook is adopted, the existing Title 17 regulations pertaining to cross-connection control and backflow prevention will be repealed, and the cross-connection control policy handbook will be in full effect. Next slide, please. Just a quick visual timeline shows the development process of the handbook, including the assembly bills that started the whole process in black, the steps we've completed so far in green, the current steps in yellow as we are nearing completion, and the final anticipated adoption and implementation dates of the handbook in red. In the future, updates to the handbook are anticipated to occur as and when needed, but there's not a set schedule or predetermined dates for when any updates will occur. However, it's probably safe to say it will not be another 35 years before an update is made to cross-connection requirements. Next slide, please. The next two slides will go over some of the major updates and changes or additions to cross-connection control requirements from Title 17 to the policy handbook. The existing Title 17 regulations require public water systems to have 6 elements to their cross-connection control programs. These largely lack detail, which the handbook has now provided, in addition to adding 4 new elements that must be included in cross-connection control programs moving forward. Public water systems will need to detail how they intend to comply with each of the 10 elements of a program through the adoption of a cross-connection control plan. A new element that public water systems must comply with is reporting of backflow incidents, whether actual or suspected events, to both the State Water Board and to local health agencies. The handbook requires public water systems to use a certified cross-connection control specialist for specific purposes. This will include the completion of hazard assessments for all water systems, consultation for cross-connection control plan development for water systems with more than 1,000 service connections, and for systems with more than 3,000 service connections, a cross-connection control specialist must be on staff or under contract with the public water system, and the designated cross-connection control program coordinator must be a certified specialist. Next slide, please. Some other items of interest, in addition to the changes to cross-connection control programs, include ANSI accreditation for organizations that certify backflow prevention assembly testers and/or cross-connection control specialists. Organizations will need to have ANSI accreditation within 3 years after the effective date of the handbook, in addition to some other requirements that are specified in the handbook. Public water systems will need to have public outreach and education efforts to inform the public of the need for and the importance of cross-connection control. Additionally, public water systems will need to coordinate with local entities when and where necessary. DDW will be providing guidance in the future on what compliance may look like for each of these items due to the numerous requests for and comments received, which sought more details be given on those items. The frequency of hazard assessments has been established in the handbook, but the conditions for and timelines of hazard assessments after an initial assessment is completed will need to be proposed by public water systems in their cross-connection control plan. And finally, the criteria for the installation of backflow preventers has been updated to bring the standards in line with what current industry practice is. And with that, I will hand off the remainder of the presentation to Andres.
Thank you. As Nick noted, we're expanding, next slide, please. As Nick noted, we're expanding from 6 to 10 elements required in a cross-connection control program. This is an overview of those changes. The current 6 elements are kept, but more detail is provided and 4 new elements are added. Public water systems are already implementing the 6 elements, and many may already meet the new requirements. We ask that all these elements be discussed in a public water systems cross-connection control plan. on how compliance is maintained. A public water system is still required to have legal authority to implement their program. Surveys are still required, with water systems now asked to provide a proposed frequency and track certain information. Provisions for installation of backflow preventers remains. Some installation criteria has been updated, and we recognize the use of pressure vacuum breakers in some applications. A person to carry out a program, which we call a coordinator, is still needed, and the requirement for the person varies based on system size and complexity. Testing requirements continue, with documentation also needed for air gap installations. For certain activities related to cross-connection, we now specify the use of certified persons for those activities and their requirements. Most public water systems have some form of incident response. We are now asking water systems to document it. A challenge with responding to cross-connection incidents is recognizing when they occur. Studies have found that public water systems that have a program in place are better able to recognize and respond to incidents. Public outreach and education is a new requirement. Water users and the public are also invested in protection of the public water supply. Informing and educating the public can help prevent and identify cross-connections to ensure compliance. The handbook does not have specific requirements on these, as these can vary by system size and need. The requirement to coordinate with local entities recognizes that there are other parties that may be involved in cross-connection, control, and prevention. Public water systems are asked to identify who these may be and how they will ensure the public water supply is maintained safe. Some examples are fire departments using fire hydrants, local plumbing groups, and city building departments. The handbook does not have specific requirements. These again can vary by a public water system size and be tailored to needs and discussed by the public water system in their plan. Next slide, please. The final draft of the handbook incorporates all the changes made following the 2 public comment periods and hearings. This slide goes over the changes since the most recent comment period. The handbook now specifies that public water systems are not responsible for internal protection at users' connections. We received many comments asking that this be made clear. Public water systems can choose to have internal programs, but this is not required. The minimum is protection at the service connection. Auxiliary water supply, the definition now covers non-potable sources which are equipped or can be equipped to the public water system. The emphasis is placed on a specialist and public water system to determine if a water source may pose a risk or not. From comments received, many public water systems ask for flexibility on having to contact a specialist within 1 hour. A public water system can now have a specialist or designee. The limited availability of specialists, availability overnight, days off, or vacation can make staffing difficult. A public water system can have a designee, but must include in their plan who qualifies and their use. For backflow protection for fire sprinklers, a public water system can request an alternate date to install or alternative method that can provide the same level of public health protection. This would need to be included in their plan. Next slide, please. These are the documents we have currently posted on our website. We have the 2 drafts of the cross-connection control policy handbook, as well as the comments received. Responses to comments are also included and indexed by section commented. The staff report provides rationale or an explanation for the sections of the handbook. The current draft, the final draft, is on the website, as well as the updated staff report. Next slide, please. And with that, we open it to comments. We ask that oral comments be limited to 3 minutes per commenter to allow time for others to comment and to provide name and affiliation if applicable. For written comments, please refer to the workshop notification. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate, I know the work that's gone into something that is so long overdue to be updated. And just really appreciate as well the community of cross-connection specialists and the water systems and the local folks that have come together to help us update this. And this, what always reminds me is, a wide array of issues that the board here sees. And when it comes to cross connection, often not thought of as, tightly, certainly as MCL setting or the other public health work that gets done. But as we know, cross connections and their impact to public health in our drinking water systems are sometimes one of the most obvious and vulnerable places that we can find challenges. So appreciate the work that's gone on to synthesize this, and looking to any board members if they have questions on the policy before we start to hear from anyone. Okay, seeing none, we can begin. And I know there are a tranche here of folks that are speak if necessary. You can just, I'll call you up anyway, and just feel free to pass along if you're not looking to speak. I'd like to first call up Christine Compton. Good morning. Sorry, the mic's cold, so I just need to turn it on top. Thank you.
Thanks. Good morning, Christine Compton, Irvine Ranch Water District. I'm the Director of Strategic Communications and Advocacy and the Deputy General Counsel. Before you this morning, we wanted to provide comments on 5 different things that we feel are still outstanding, recognizing that this has been a long process and we do want to see it move forward. The first is on the 12-month period for adoption of the cross-control plan. With the guidance that your staff is issuing, depending on when that comes out, it will greatly impact what needs to go into the plan. The current policy says that we must do it 12 months after it's adopted. And so if the guidance comes out after adoption, and I don't know what the staff's plan is, that will greatly impact it. And so we're asking that there at least be given some consideration to that timing issue, because it is an undertaking, at least what I'm hearing from our staff, that we'll want to have that guidance and have then the 12 months to run it. So would ask the board to consider that. The second one relates to the treatment of residences on the subsequent hazard assessment requirements. Currently, single-family homes are excluded. We think multifamily should also, a huge percentage of our service area is multifamily homes, which are often the plumbing and everything else is not controlled by the homeowner. And so we think the risk there is equivalent to single-family homes, and it should be treated the same. We absolutely believe in cross connection control and backflow protection, but wanted to raise that issue because it's a resource issue for our staff and really does mean substantial increases in the size of our team. The other one really relates to fire protection systems. We understand the language that the staff has put in this most recent draft. We still have concerns that relate to many properties went in with fire protection before these requirements were in place. And so going back, for example, to all of the single family homes in our service area that have been put in prior to that requirement, we now require it, and asking them to do it in 10 years is a substantial undertaking. There are other properties where the level of protection that's being required for in the policy, there may not be the space for it, there may be cost issues, there may be timing. We know that there's flexibility in what we can propose for alternatives, but we would ask that language also be added to allow for an exception in those cases where it feasibly wouldn't work on the ground or didn't make sense. Because what's going to happen is come a decade from now, for all those properties that haven't done it, including single family homes, we're going to have to threaten to shut them off and/or shut them off if they don't comply. And so we just want to be really thoughtful about that. We realize it's a decade away, but we're estimating for our service area, it's about $50 million. So it's not a small investment that needs to be done, and that's not our cost. Our costs are separate from that. That's just what we're expecting from our customers. The fourth one is there was language changed in section 3.3.2E regarding PVBs in right-of-way. We would ask that the previous language that was in the last draft be reverted to. USC's Manual for Cross Protection and Hydraulic Control says that PVBs and SWRCB backflows provide adequate protection, and we don't see limiting the irrigation provision just to in-roadway if there's not the further risk. And finally, we just raise again, we know there's flexibility to put it in our plan, but the timeline when a backflow fails is 30 days. We are just seeing, realistically, it's significantly longer to get the parts. And so we just ask that when the guidance is issued on that the staff really recognize the boots on the ground perspective and allow us to put things in the plan that recognize that we're not just sitting around waiting for somebody or whatnot, but it's going to take time, and ask for that flexibility in the guidance so that way we can address it appropriately and have that needed flexibility in our plans. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I really appreciate those constructive comments. And then now would call up Sean Cleary, who will be followed by Dave Bolton. Good morning. Good to see you.
Yeah, I would just like to say, Sean Cleary from the International Association of Plumbing and Mechanical Officials Backflow Prevention Institute. I have been as involved as I possibly could with this handbook since the beginning, and I do have to say the final product, while not perfect, is incredibly good. And I would urge the board to adopt it in its final draft form. I know that, it's not going to address every issue that is out there, and it will cause some hardship, and I do understand that. But, as one of the speakers said before, 30 years or 35 years, a long time to wait before upgrading regulations. So I do think that it is important that this handbook move forward as quickly as possible and be implemented. It's going to clean up an awful lot of gray areas that have existed out there, and it's going to allow for much better backflow prevention and cross-connection control in the state of California. So I would encourage you to move this forward as expeditiously as possible. And I would like to thank everybody that was involved in this for all the hard work that they did on it.
Thank you, Mr. Cleary. That's appreciated. And yeah, certainly we know we can never have perfect. And I think it's why we do iterate off of this so often and look forward to what we know will be updates sometime in the future. And again, we'll look forward to not waiting 30 years to do that. It'll make it a lot easier to make this work a lot more manageable. Appreciate the support and your contributions to it all. Thank you. Next, I'd like to call up Dave Bolin, will be followed by Nick Blair.
Thank you, Chairman Esquivel. Board members, we appreciate the opportunity to speak. Today I'm speaking on behalf of the California Water Association. The California Water Association is a statewide association of over 90 member companies that are regulated by the Public Utilities Commission, and the members serve drinking water to over 6 million Californians. And CWA is pleased to support adoption of the Cross-Connection Control Policy Handbook. CWA and its member utilities work collaboratively with the State Water Board staff and water associations and technical experts for over 3 years to get us to this stage. CWA supports the comments that are to be made by the California-Nevada section of the American Water Works Association on behalf of Coalition. We'll be filing a letter that we sign on that. CWA appreciates the State Water Board staff's intentions to work with the Standing Technical Advisory Committee to develop guidance documents and templates for cross-connection control plans and the revisions to the Green Book that may be needed to help implement the handbook requirements. We agree with the Coalition's request that the Water Board commit to a firm timeline to review and approve those plans. CWA members operate public water systems across the state that work with many district offices of the Field Operations Branch. And we would ask that there be a coordination and consistent interpretation and enforcement by each district office for consistency across the state. CWA also wants to underscore the fact that water utilities anticipate significant new costs of compliance in coming years, and this in turn will put pressure on water rates and affordability. For example, and this was brought up by Christine in the previous comment, existing fire services without testable backflow prevention assemblies will require upgrades that may cost up to $30,000 or more per connection under best conditions. And if the required water pressure resulting from the installation of backflow protection requires modifications to fire sprinkler systems or the installation of fire booster pumps, these costs could increase significantly. And these are direct costs to the consumers. But survey and administrative costs will also accrue to the utilities, and these costs will affect water rates. Since many utilities have operated under American Water Works Association recommended practice for backflow prevention and cross-connection control, the M14, To address these deficiencies when water sprinkler systems are being modified and during remodel, we ask that these be recognized as best practices for implementing the CCCPH. Although we support the public health protections required in the handbook, the associated costs will be a difficult challenge for utilities and their customers. Again, we thank you for all the hard work on this, and we will be submitting written comments as well.
Thank you, Mr. Bowen. Next, I'd like to call up Nick Blair, who will be followed by Rosario Cortez.
Good morning. If possible, could I actually be put after Ms. Sue Mossberg?
Definitely. We'll come back to you, Mr. Blair. Next, I'd like to call up Rosario Cortez, who will be followed by Lauren Hutch. Good morning. Good to see you.
Morning. Every meeting seems to have a alert and regularly. It's a new thing. But anyway, good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the State Water Resources Control Board, Rosario Cortez, Manager of Regulatory Affairs for Water Reuse California. Thank you for the opportunity to address you on the draft handbook. We greatly appreciate the Division of Drinking Water and their responsiveness to our prior concerns that we've raised in our comments. We are pleased to be here today and have four minor areas we would like to see revised. If there could be a possible revision to section 2.1, what is backflow, to state that not all swivel Ls, but only specify improperly installed swivel Ls can result in a cross connection. Currently, the draft reads that all swivel Ls without qualification are a backflow, which we do not believe is the intent. And secondly, we would recommend revising the definition of user premises to more clearly address homeowners association controlled areas, and also clarify the reference to recycled water use areas in Appendix D. And lastly, clarify that recycled water is excluded from the definition of auxiliary water supply. And I will certainly expand on all of this in our comment letter, and just thank you so much for your time and consideration.
Thank you for those constructive comments and looking forward to the letter. Next, I'd like to call up Lauren Hatch, who will be followed by James Lee, and then Roland Hazard.
I will pass.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Hatch. Next, we'll go to James Lee.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity. James Lee, Recycle Water Supervisor, Cross Connection Control with Eastern Municipal Water District. My question is in regard to after the initial survey and a installation of a high hazard backflow protection, RP, is installed and tested at least annually thereafter, why is there a need to resurvey the property when the distribution system is already protected and verified each time it's tested? What is accomplished by the resurvey, even if a new tenant is moves in with a lower hazard than the previous tenant? Water agencies do not remove the high hazard backflow in those cases because the property has already shown to have the potential to contain high hazards. So the backflow requirement would stay the same. Another question I have is the in section 3.1.4 B and number 5, it says a description of the process and time frame for ensuring each non-testable backflow preventer is under the public water system's ownership or administration is installed and maintained according to the California Plumbing Code. What is meant by under administration? This seems to be requiring a detailed level of inspection and record keeping for the private residences that goes beyond the scope of a normal cross-connection program of an agency that's not affiliated with a county or city building department that would normally inspect plumbing code requirements. Those are all the comments I have. Thank you.
I appreciate those and questions noted, and appreciate and look to folks because I'd like to be able to hear some of the responses to those questions as well as we work through the rest of the handbook. So I appreciate that, Mr. Lee. Next, I'd like to call up Roland Hazard, who will be followed by Sue Mossberg.
Yeah, thank you, everybody on the board. I just want to take this opportunity to, pretty much thanks everybody for all their help with this new policy handbook that's way overdue. I come more from the private side and would just like some more clarification in the policy handbook regarding certification that across the board in California, we have to have almost like 5 certifications to test. So it would be real nice if we got more clarification, if we can have just 1 certification. And that was pretty much my concern. Thank you.
I appreciate those comments and that feedback. Thank you, Mr. Hazard. Next, I'd like to call up Sue Mossberg.
Morning. And thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Sue Mossberg, the Executive Director of the California-Nevada section of the American Water Association. And on behalf of Cal-Nevada, AWWA, and our coalition partners, I just wanted to say thank you. The California-Nevada section of AWWA really appreciates the work done to date to create a workable cross-connection control policy handbook, the time that's been committed to receive and really thoughtfully respond to our questions and comments. Cross-connection backflow incidents are underreported and they're very real threats to the public health. And we do support the state's efforts to ensure that potable water distribution systems are protected with robust requirements and enforcement. Cal-Nevada AWWA supported Assembly Bill 1671, which required the policy handbook to be updated, and our backflow program committees organized large groups of subject matter experts to provide comments through this process, both during the public comment workshops and in one-on-one conversations. We believe that the updates proposed to the cross-connection control policy handbook are necessary and overdue and welcomed. Cal-Nevada AWWA has managed the program to certify backflow prevention assembly testers and cross-connection control specialists for over 40 years. In June of this year, our certification program received third-party accreditation from ISO/IEC. So we stand by ready to support the entities and the individuals with new and renewed backflow and cross-connection certification requirements in conformity with the updated handbook. We really do appreciate the many specific comments that have been combed through that were submitted as part of the previous rounds of public comment and have now been incorporated into the current version of the handbook. Although a few specific comments were not addressed, we do believe that the October 5th version of the document is acceptable. We understand that the cross-connection control policy handbook will be a living document. Thank you. And then subsequent revisions will take place from time to time to address the latest industry concerns, the challenges that come up regarding cross-connection control and backflow prevention and protection. Cal-Nevada AWWA is supportive of these efforts to maintain an up-to-date cross-connection control policy handbook and is committed to provide consultation to the state board when the adoption of revisions is required. We do want to reiterate that there's a few of our previous recommendations which have not been incorporated into the current draft. And we will note those in a written letter coming forward, specifically related to our suggestion to incorporate in the appendix some information. We don't see that in this specific version, and we just wanted to note that. We also did make a recommendation to revise the Green Book, the Green Manual, and maintain public access to it, and we haven't seen that has been included. And then specifically provide a time frame for the state review and approval of water supplier cross-connection control plans. But with that said, I just wanted to say again, thank you for the opportunity to work collaboratively to provide comments along the way. Our Cal Nevada AWWA committees and the backflow community do look forward to continuing a strong professional relationship with the Division of Drinking Water staff in this area. And along with the UC Foundation for Cross Connection Control, and hydraulic research and others and our other partners, we really do aim to continue a strong involvement in this important area of water quality protection. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mossberg. I really appreciate the continued leadership. You know, AWWA's synthesis of all the great technical work that's going on there is just a critical partner for us in all of this. And in that 30-year lapse of not updating necessarily the handbook and this work, it's been great that the community has continued to focus and professionalize it, and we have a moment here to best synthesize all that, and appreciate the comments on additional work that folks are still looking to be done as we come to try to really finalize this and move forward on, like you said, regularly updating therefrom as well. So just thanks. I really appreciate that leadership. It means a lot. Next, I'd like to call up John Graham, who'll be followed by Danielle Rose, Tom Enslow, and then Nick Blair. We'll come back to you, Nick.
Thank you, board members and staff. John Graham, private contractor and policy consultant. I have over 35 years of experience in the water sector and have had the privilege of working with many of the industry groups over the last 20 years. I have been closely involved in the handbook development process, and I want to acknowledge staff for all their hard work and the volunteers and for your commitment to our common goal to address what may be the single greatest risk to distribution system water quality. The common awareness that the policy handbook must be a living document will ensure that the industry and our customers will benefit from current guidance well into the future. The handbook most certainly will create a culture shock within the industry, as you've heard from some of the comments. However, these changes are necessary to protect public health, and I encourage adoption. I challenge you to find a more passionate or opinionated group or sector in the water industry. And staff has done an amazing job of working with those groups, and you could tell by the sheer volume of comments received at every turn just how involved and concerned the industry is. If I could make one change to the policy handbook at this late stage, it would be the addition of a single sentence requiring water suppliers to report information regarding unethical behavior by certified backflow prevention assembly testers. Sadly, some testers perform what is euphemistically referred to as drive-by testing, submitting test reports for assemblies not actually tested. While such conduct is not common, water suppliers do identify these testers as part of their veracity program. Currently, in the absence of a clear regulatory reporting requirement, water suppliers are dissuaded from or even forbidden by legal counsel from reporting this unethical behavior to the certifying body. The concern is that unless it's required to report by regulation, the water supplier could face legal action by the tester. In other words, if they lose their certification, they could turn around and sue the water supplier. Personally, in one instance, following receipt of passing test reports for 4 assemblies, I was able to obtain video confirmation that field testing had not occurred, along with the tester admitting on camera that they had not tested the assemblies for 2 consecutive years. Based on the aforementioned legal concerns, all that I could do was remove the tester from our resource list. However, there were a dozen or more water suppliers within an hour's drive where this individual continued their quote-unquote business. If water suppliers can't report unethical testers, they are not dealt with. Throughout the handbook development process, water suppliers and certifying bodies have made it clear that a reporting requirement is needed in the handbook. That is all our legal teams need, one simple sentence, which will free the water suppliers to forward information to the certifying body. Please help us by adding this requirement to the handbook. And again, my sincere thanks to the staff and volunteers for the work they've done.
And mine to you as well, and I really appreciate that. to my mind, very common sense addition that can help continue to professionalize and give faith to this important work. So thank you, Mr. Graham. Next, I'd like to call up Danielle Rose, who will be followed by Tom Enslow, and then last we have Nick Blair.
Hello, good morning. My name is Danielle Rose and I represent Carpinteria Valley Water District. We're a small water utility of about 4,500 service connections, and we have 2 backflow specialists on staff. So as a small agency with 2 specialists that are currently certified by AWWA, we just want to emphasize clarification and transparency throughout the process of which agencies are going to be approved for specialists. And we also have many testers who have expressed their concern regarding the approved certification agencies, fearing having to travel multiple hours to certify and recertify at the state level, rather than simply just going to their local county agencies and health departments. Ask that you consider that more certification sites spread throughout the state of California for ease of keeping our testers testing. Also, as a multitude of others have mentioned, there are numerous complications with modifying existing fire sprinkler systems with huge costs to the average residential customer who largely have not been a part of this process. We hope that you will recognize that homeowners may seek legal action due to these major unforeseen expenses and provide timing and flexibility with us getting proper backflow devices on their fire sprinkler systems. And then I too, like James Lee also mentioned, would like clarification regarding follow-up hazard assessments. I'm under the impression that if an RP or air gap is already installed on site, that just verification through our internal database should be sufficient in order to ensure that they can move forward with setting up their account instead of having to do a follow-up site visit. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Rose. Really appreciate those comments. Next, I'd like to call up Tom Enslow, and then we'll have Nick Blair.
Good morning, Chair, staff members. I'm Tom Enslow. I'm an attorney with the law firm Adams, Broadwell, Joseph, and Cardozo, and I'm here today on behalf of the California State Pipe Trades Council that represents over 30,000 plumbers across the state that both install plumbing and do backflow testing and cross-connection testing. The council is pleased that staff has come up with a document that has widespread support. This is long overdue and coming. We've been lobbying over 10 years to have these updated. The statute, came out, was telling to be updated by, I think, 2019. So we don't want to see any more delay. I think we've got to a point which is pretty incredible, which has almost universal support. And I think anything that needs to be tweaked can be tweaked along the way, since this is a living document. One issue in here that's kind of near to our heart is clarifying the certifications you need to do backflow testing and cross-connection controls. Under the current regulations, it was a patchwork across the state, jurisdiction by jurisdiction, decided which certification to use. You heard the one commentator earlier say he needed 5 different certifications to practice in the state. And we have unified standards for building standards across the state. We need them for these certification standards. This is now in here. It actually sets forth what you have to be trained on, plus provides that you are going to be accepted if you get ISO ANSI certified. Right now, AWWA is the only one who has that. Our members use ASSE, but they're on their way to have it too. They think that those are reasonable requirements. They're going to meet those requirements, and it's going to create standardized certification across the state that everyone can rely on, and it means that our members aren't going to have 5 different certifications to do the same job. Thank you.
Thank you. Really appreciate that. Next, we'll go to Nick Blair. Sorry, Mr. Blair. I was going to call you right after Sue, and then I started to just name off names from a list. So thanks for the patience.
Not to worry. Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everybody. Nick Blair, State Relations Advocate for the Association of California Water Agencies, representing over 460 public water systems across California. I'll be brief in saying that Aqua aligns with the comments made by Sue Mossberg and Dave Boland on the coalition comments for a timeframe for state review and approval of cross-connection plans, public access to the staff report, and revising the green manual. Also, though, want to make sure that we do treat this as a living document. As Christine Compton noted, there are numerous issues that our member agencies have concerns with. So it's important to keep the conversation going through a technical advisory committee so that way, as things evolve, agencies have the ability to communicate that and get the flexibility that they need in submitting their plans. And that's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you as well. I really appreciate everyone's comments here. And, I think feel general consensus here that we're close. And, I know folks will be here taking what we've heard back here, but I know for myself, I just am pleased with, I know there's a lot of work before the board, and seeing just a project like this where, yes, it's a bit overdue, but it's been time well spent because of the synthesis and the agreement that we're largely hearing, even though I know there's still concern largely here, it sounds like, from the water agencies and others when it comes to particularly the fire system upgrades that might have to happen because of the updates that we're looking toward here. But when I look at, again, the broad consensus that we generally have, and importantly, the criticality of the work when it comes to protecting public health, I'm just really appreciative of everyone's work on this. Looking to any fellow board colleagues if they have questions or.
Chair Esquivel, we do have one additional commenter.
Thank you. Yeah, we will have, thank you. I didn't update my list here, so apologize. We do have one more commenter, by all means.
My apologies. My name is Luis Huerta. I am a water professional, and I want to thank the staff for their dedication to this handbook and for allowing water systems to have a tool to implement a unique cross-connection control plan that is supposed to be tailored to the agency's needs. I believe that most of the comments, they overlook the the opportunity that they have to address their own needs and their concerns in their cross-connection control plans. And I think there's a lot of good information that has been presented, and I appreciate Sue Mossberg from AWWA and the opportunity that she has given us to hold workshops and training where we can discuss, all these questions and implementation concerns. And I believe that, having more of those participation in those workshops and in those trainings, will enrich the knowledge and the programmatic application that the water systems needs to take advantage of this policy handbook. One last thing that I wanted to say is that from my perspective, the cross-connection control policy handbook is ready for adoption. I believe that there is just, that outreach that needs to happen, through the industry to all the professionals. And as we all learn from each other, implementation techniques or approaches, we will be able to take advantage of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Huerta. I apologize for truncating there and moving off of comment before receiving your comment, and really appreciate your leadership and work amongst all of this. So just thank you very much, and appreciate again everyone's comments to this project. Looking to my fellow board colleagues if they have any questions themselves or comment. Okay. Board Member Morgan or Board Member McGuire? Board Member McGuire.
Yes, thank you. I really appreciate all the good work that's been put into this, and I completely concur. It's long overdue to have the handbook updated. So my only question really is to staff, and it's about the request for a little more clarity on the guidance materials and flexibility there about when the guidance might be provided. Some of the feedback we heard about the cross-connection plan that would be required within 12 months of adoption of this handbook kind of resonates with me, and if in fact the guidance material won't be available for a while. So I'm hoping to hear a little bit more about that. And then also just the green book A few commenters mentioned the Green Book and a request to update that, and I'm not exactly sure what that is or what that would entail, or if there's any plans to update that material as well. So I'd like to hear a little bit more.
Thank you, board member. And I'm not sure if folks have any responses here in the moment, and if not, don't feel like we have to completely answer what will be, I know, a follow-up on the questions that we heard today. And generally, though, Vice Chair noted, if there's anything you all want to respond to what you've heard today, feel free to wrap that into it as well.
So to respond to I'll start with the Green Book, just a quick background on Andreas and Nick, and correct me if I'm wrong. The Green Book is sort of historical compilation of policy memos and documents and industry standards documents.
Yeah, the Green Book came out when the 1989 cross connection regulations were adopted. It was a guidance that for some areas that couldn't be included in the regulations. It included some policy and other guidance. There is guidance planned for this handbook that's to be developed.
I was trying to unmute. So in a sense, the answer to the Green Book question and the guidance document question is sort of the same, in that it is our intent to, once we get the handbook adopted, we're going to transition, and with consultation really with our the industry that experts we've been working with, to, if not build a new Green Book or to revise the Green Book, to provide guidance that meets that same intent, so to speak. The Green Book is just sort of shorthand for a guidance compilation.
Thank you. That's appreciated.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Thanks. I appreciate that, and I also appreciate how complicated this is. And I know it's taken many years just to get to this point of being close to adoption of the handbook. So just as we're thinking through the sequencing, right? How long might it take you reasonably to update these documents, to prepare the guidance materials, and then thinking through how much time would that leave the water suppliers that would then have to develop the plan, the cross connection control plan after that. Right now I think we're giving them a 12-month window. So I would just maybe at a later time like to think and better understand the schedule and the sequencing and how all this might fit together. But thank you for your work on this.
Thank you, board member. Board member Morgan.
I'll just say, thank you. I know it's been a long road to get to today, and I want to thank everyone for the continued collaboration, the previous workshops, and just working together to get the handbook to where it is today. I think that with that collaboration, we've gotten to a place where everyone, from what, the comments today, it seems that there's majority, it's, agreement of we're in a good place. There's a couple of questions that are remaining that will come in, through the comment letters. And so I'm interested in seeing those, and just perhaps, just that correspondence back of the clarification of the questions that do remain. And so board member McGuire brought up one, and then, just the, another one that stood out to me was just the, if there's already documentation that there is, there's the RP gap already on site, can they just verify that, or do they have to go out and do like a site inspection? So I'm assuming like a lot of those questions will be answered through the guidance and through, additional. And so just clarifying and getting that communication to where, there's understanding of how they can achieve the intent with, just streamlining that and making sure that we can implement this in the handbook the most efficient way. So again, thank you guys. I think, just great work at getting us to today. I know it's been a long road, and there's a lot of work that's gone into getting this. So I just want to recognize all the work that's gone into this. Thank you.
Thank you, board member. And just appreciate again everyone's participation in what has been a long process, but looking forward to getting this across the finish line. There's nothing further from everyone. We can close out then the workshop in this item and appreciate again the participation. That actually then will bring us to the end of our board meeting generally. We will not have closed session. Our next board meeting will be November 7th and 8th. And just appreciate the last 2 days here with everyone. We'll see you all in 2 weeks. Until then, this meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.